The special guest in the studio. I'm excited. I'm actually nervous because this guy has been doing amazing work for Zimbabwean art, and he continues to do so, by the way. And we will talk about something interesting coming up soon. I really don't want to introduce him in the wrong way, so I'll do it after this.
Radio Redefined 100% plus 4.
11 after 11 right here on Cappy Talk 100.4 FM, and of course we get into the chat room. Chat room is a space where we talk to different people doing different things, and we like celebrating excellence as well. And today we are celebrating someone who has done a lot for us in terms of the arts industry, who continues to pioneer and change the way we look at art in Zimbabwe. He's a creative social entrepreneur, he's a promoter, he's a journalist. He is a lot of things in one. He cannot be folded. He cannot be, he is just awesomeness. Can I call you legendary? Is it too early to call you legendary?
It's too early.
Okay, but the incredible Plot Mhako. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for the humbling introduction.
I had to, because like I continue saying, you are doing great things, especially paving way for the new generation of music, of dance, of creativity, basically in Zimbabwe. We would go back and start talking about how you started all this, but it would be a long story. I just want us to celebrate what you are doing with us. But of course, a lot of people, I think, in terms of association, when they heard Jibilika, they'll be like, Plot Mhako.
Yes.
And I think for most people, including me, that's the genesis of how I came to know about you. But you have since grown bigger and better in so many ways. Let's talk about, what you've been doing over the years. Maybe, since Jibilika.
Well, it's been a long way when I look back, because there's been a lot of chapters. But the beginning of the journey, I could take it back to when I was still in high school, getting interested in music, trying my hands in music, but also realizing that I was not musically inclined, but I still love music. I was surrounded by music. Mm-hmm. My life, it was music all around me, from home, school, everywhere, And then, finally deciding to start Jibilika. But over the past years, it has been episodes, bittersweet episodes. Yeah. It hasn't been all rosy. There have been struggles, but I think these struggles have somehow strengthened and refined my craft, and I've remained resilient in terms of what I wanted to achieve.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And resilience is what you've been, because every great thing I would love to believe, funny turbulence, you go through a lot to make sure that, sometimes I want to believe, but you also want to give up at some point and say, but you keep soldiering on. But when you look at our industry, and I just want to understand how it works on your part. What do you consider when you look at, okay, I feel like it was something, and then you go in for it. How do you come about with your concepts and all that?
I think what sort of motivates me is the amount of talent that we have in Zimbabwe. Just seeing that abundant talents, in its diverse nature across the regions is something that sort of speaks to me in a major way. Yeah. But because I'm very loud online, like personally, I'm a bit reserved, but online I'm quite loud. Yeah. And when you're talking a lot about what has to be done and maybe things have to be done this way, it gets to a point where people ask you, what are you doing in your space? Like, are you not just complaining? Are you not just pointing at fault and stuff? Yeah. So I've always put myself to task to say, look, you know what? I'll talk about stuff that I'll also be able to put some action towards, and work on something. So I'm more action drawn to make sure that at least if I say, maybe let's do things this way, or this is nice, we should emulate this. There should also be, a track record that backs up what I'm saying. Otherwise, I'll just be that naysayer who says that, things are not working out. But Zimbabwe is amazing talent, and that potential is something that I connect to, and I want to be part of the journey that sees Zimbabwe, thrive and shine on the global map.
I think, like you're rightfully saying, we've got talent, we've got potential, we've got skills, we've got creativity. But I think Chinichanga Chileka, for the most part, is to say, how do we make sure that this talent is heard? How do we expose this talent? How do we bring them to the limelight? It's always been about the big artists, which is fine. But what about the younger artists who also need space to get in there? And I think that's where you come in now, especially with a wonderful, wonderful initiative like Earground. I think I started bumping into Earground here and there during COVID, and you were doing those online interviews.
Yeah.
But to me, I was like, okay, this is what we need going forward. In fact, we need more of this. How did you come up with that concept of Earground?
Well, for Earground, I live in Germany, so I'm in Zimbabwe for maybe the most in a year, 6 weeks. So being away from home, you miss home, you love home, and then you're trying to find this content, you don't find it, or you find it online, and it's not maybe mainstream all the time. So I thought of, okay, why not create maybe a platform that is not on the ground, but keeps an ear on the ground.
Right.
So that was the whole idea behind it. So then I thought, okay, if it's ear to the ground is too long, why not make it short and make it unique? So Earground then came about. So Earground is basically, telling a story about the amazing creative and the cultural scene in Zimbabwe, in the diaspora and also back at home, but digitally. Yes.
And tracing how Earground has started now, you can actually tell that it's growing. People are paying attention to it, and it's actually becoming the source, the go-to source, like you put it exactly. If you want to know what's happening, you need to get to Earground and understand it. But of course, putting it up all together should be a lot of setting up something like this, because you need resources and whatnot. How are you able to still navigate through it, even though you need a lot of things to make it happen?
So, what's interesting is that Earground ran for the first 2 years on a cell phone, like just one cell phone.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is where we did a lot of the work, and it was mainly me, and then the team started growing. So I think now the digital space gives us a lot of possibilities.
Absolutely.
Possibilities to even get stories and information and content from places that are far afield. So this is the possibility that we're using, the digital opportunities and platforms that are there for us to actually use. So, but it's quite involving, it's quite taxing, because I also have got my 9 to 5, I've got school, I've got kids, and I've got other projects as well. So being able to be online and manage content online really takes a lot of effort. But now there's a crop of young people that we're working with, amazing young people that are doing a lot of the work on Earground.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Interesting. And we will talk also about the things that you're doing within Earground. But most amazingly, I think there's been noise around this for a long time. The Amplifier Festival.
Yes.
It's almost here, and an exciting lineup. But again, how did you then come up with such an amazing concept to say, these young people, they need space, they need their own thing that they can say, look, this is our thing, and we're going to shine, we're going to be creative with it?
If you look right now, the African narrative is changing, it's shifting, and it's being shifted by young people who are making music, amazing music, from South Africa, Nigeria, Uganda, and so forth. And Zimbabwe, has amazing producers, people that are also doing amazing things, from production, videos, and so forth. But in terms of music mainstream, we've really been lagging behind. But this talent is there, plenty of it. So realizing that we've got a lot of that talent, but what it lacks is maybe just a bit of support, a bit of professional help for them to actually become the stars that they need. And we have heard the story of impact on some of the artists that we have profiled on Earground. If you look at Obek Chari, Mambo Duterere, now Andrea, the vocalist, we're like, what if we create a festival where we get to see not only artists from Harare, but artists from all over, from Matabeleland North, from Mash West, from Mutare, have them the creme de la creme, diverse from those sounding traditional, those sounding urban, those sounding dancehall, reggae, and so forth, and hip hop, and give them a platform. What more would we accomplish? Would definitely be uncontainable not only in Zimbabwe but on the global stage. And also, we need to see new crop from time to time because there's just so much we need to explore.
Indeed. Now, setting up Amplify Festival, let's talk about support, which for me I think makes the biggest difference, because with enough support we can achieve what we want to achieve. Young people can soar higher and higher and higher. Are you getting enough support in terms of putting up festivals like this and making sure that everyone is in there? It's not, because I always tell people, it's not only about this art, but it's also, there are a lot of business opportunities that are presented through things like this. Are people warming up to it in terms of partnerships as well?
Definitely. I think that's one of the most amazing things, because traditionally you knew that a lot of festivals were supported by NGOs and embassies, which was a good thing, but now it's more encouraging to see that the corporate world in Zimbabwe, including even the media, are coming on board to support different initiatives that are supporting creatives and artists. Check a lot of the festivals or events that are happening, they're being supported by the corporate sector. So that shift alone is something that we desperately needed. But artists have to be ready for engagement with the corporate, because the professional handling from the artistic side is what still needs to be done. And this is why within the Amplify Festival, day one is a workshop, a training, creative business training workshop with all the artists that are performing and some producers, music and video producers, so that at least they don't just get to perform and end there, but they know the business behind showbiz.
It's interesting. I actually had a similar conversation last week. We were talking with these creative entrepreneurs about art and business, and you can tell that there's a lot of warming up to how can we invest our art, but also make sure that there's value that comes out of it as well, which are things that work hand in hand as well. And it's amazing to see the future of Zimbabwe through festivals like this. Now, you being someone who obviously stays overseas, how has it helped shape your your experience, or probably the input that you're going to give us back home to say, okay, I think we can put this into practice as well and see where it gets us?
I think it's been an amazing experience, because last week I went to Glendale and I met up with some amazing young artists there. And these artists, for me, when I look at them and the potential that they have, could actually transform so much in terms of how people view Zimbabwe and the kind of music that is coming from Zimbabwe. Like every week we've got, I'm a piano DJs and artists coming to Zimbabwe. It's fine, fair and fine for business, but imagine if our artists were also an export and going to perform in Zambia, in Malawi, in Namibia, and not only performing for Zimbabwe, like what we've traditionally seen, that we're going to UK, we're going to South Africa,
but
to
for
entertain
our own
people that are missing home, which is okay, but what if we break the barrier and be able to entertain non-Zimbabweans or a mix of nationalities, would then definitely become international. Yes.
I've seen that you have changed the way we look. Honestly, you are one of the people who have really changed how we look at art in Zimbabwe, and I want to believe we're at a point where if you don't do it, nobody won't. Somebody has to do it. And then if you're like, you know what, it's me, I have to, pioneer this. I need to champion this. But when you look at that, are you getting in touch with a partnership? But let's talk about the artists themselves. Do they realize that these platforms are actually platforms that they can totally change their lives?
I think there's a lot of hunger amongst the artists, especially the young crop of artists, because our entertainment scene has been dominated by a few names. Brilliant artists, definitely. I don't take anything away from them. But we can't go for 10 years, 15 years having the same lineup all the time. What of the next generation of artists? And then we create that void. And when we create that void, it means that we are also going to be left behind, because the world is progressing. New artists are popping up. If you look at Nigeria, new artists. So there is that hunger, but there is also artists that are still used to doing business in the old ways, very unprofessional way. But obviously, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort for everybody to start to see where things are actually going and where we could be.
Absolutely. I also wanted us to talk about, the for lack of a better word, monopoly that seems to exist within our music setup in Zimbabwe. Because you look at the bigger artists getting the major shares, getting the major shows as well. It's always like that. Only a few, young artists can squeeze in there. How do we change that narrative? How do we change that spectacle? Because it seems as if it's really, really hard for a young artist to break through. But when you look at Nigeria, for instance, they are pushing like 10 artists at the same time globally. How do we get to that point?
Great content will change that narrative. Look what's happening right now. The biggest song in the country right now. Two biggest songs. Nyaradzi Yababa, coming from Makungwazi, is a very young artist, in Njanja. And then Leo Magos, Fire Emoji, is the biggest song right now. And it's coming from Chegutu. So initially, you had to be in Harare for you to make great music.
Right.
But now the shift is coming from artists that are bringing something new, something that people have not experienced. And this is testimony that if you support a whole generation of artists that are young artists with new potential, that could possibly not just shift our position in Zimbabwe, but even just our narrative, So I think we are on the right step. The young artists, they just have to continue work, be unique, because if you're not unique, definitely there's no ear for you. So people have to get something unique that makes them crave to get content from you. So we definitely on the course. We're seeing that. I mean, look at the posters now. It used to be Zim Danso, which was cool, right? But now we see diverse genres. See Zim Danso, hip hop, and other genres that we cannot even give names. Yeah.
Lovely stuff. 28 minutes after 11 on Cappy Talk 100.4 FM. This is the chat room in the last and final hour. And of course, we're in conversation with Plot Mhako, who is doing amazing things for Zimbabwean arts, ear ground for those who've been following it, amplifying creative voices. And of course, we're talking about the incoming Amplify Festival as well. So I've got a very interesting comment from our WhatsApp. Says our fan wanongopisa kuma social media chat but background dololo kwanze kuita show mbeno sadzavano. And it's interesting to me. I want to understand what you mean by show mbeno sadzavano, because we are talking about the new generation of music, I don't know kwanza kuti upcoming mazwana I started using that one. Fresh artists, new artists, because you can be upcoming forever,
True.
But if you're fresh, if you're new on the scene, which I think is one of our biggest problems. Like I said earlier, Kuti, at school support the grassroots, the upcoming artists. We're not supporting them. It takes something special for us to support. But why do you think it's like that, though?
I think it's because we are conditioned to just like one thing. It's either you like this. It's the Dynamos Highlander kind of situation, where for some, if you like this artist, you cannot like the next artist. You cannot like multiple artists.
Yes, you need to be.
You need to be, one. We used to grow up like either you're Sis like Kalonji or you are Kepoton.
And that's it.
And that's it.
Yeah.
But now, because the space has been opened up by the WhatsApp, by all these other digital platforms, we now have artists that are coming in without any known background or are rising now to the top. So I think slowly people warm up to the idea that we need to know and appreciate more artists. Look at South Africa. Just 3 years down the line with Babes Odumo, she was the big thing, right?
Yeah.
But right now, people don't talk about her much.
Yeah.
Right? She's still rocking. But now we're talking about our Uncle Waffles, we're talking about Deben Gogo and so forth. Because they've got this new crop that comes. And that new crop brings in a new taste, a new culture, a new flavor, and a new market. So in terms of numbers, these young people definitely start at zero, but they will get to somewhere. Look at Killer T, look at Freeman.
Yeah.
When they started off on the streets, combis and so forth. But now they've become mainstream. So to dismiss the new crop of artists or the new emerging artists to say, they rap on WhatsApp, I think it's a bit dismissive. We need to embrace them, we need to appreciate them. But also the artists, they need to up their game, so that they're not just anyone on WhatsApp. They get mainstream, they perform, they don't wait to get booked. They actually make an effort to even create their own shows.
Yeah. Natio is a very interesting journey.
True.
Whereby you fight and fight and fight until doors open at some point.
True.
I think we're still rigid. I might be wrong, But when we have a problem when we look at the older crop, where they are still saying great music is music from yesteryear, and you can't surpass that. And as long as we have that kind of thinking, I think it's going to be hard for us to turn over and say, okay, how do you appreciate the new artists? It's 2022. Things have changed.
Things have changed.
You know, Amapiano, we might like it or not, but it's the biggest in the world right
True,
now.
true.
Whether you are 60 or you are 3, that's what's vibing. You know, that's what's vibing in the world right now.
True.
What do you think about that? Changing, not disregarding, because it's classic music. You know, it will play for generations to come.
True.
The yesteryear music, but now there needs to be space for new music.
I think there's a lot of gatekeeping, especially from the established artists. Yes, they've earned their stripes, but if you look at Nigeria, have you ever noticed that every time Davido is going on tour or Wizkid, they bring in a group of young artists that are not known.
Right.
If you've checked even in Jamaica, right, whenever they go on tour, they bring in somebody. Raven, when he came to Zimbabwe, he brought in D-Major, he brought in a few other artists from his table, young artists that he's working with. And this,
I think that's what Diamond did to Ray Fanny.
exactly.
Well. Yeah.
Right. So if you do that, you are not only helping the next generation, but you're also cementing your legacy. Look at Tuku. We had Munyama Taruse, we had Mbeu, a lot of these artists were getting a platform whenever he was performing.
Right.
You'd say, I have this curtainers. Look at Alec Macheso. We've got the Tedious Matsito son. We've got the Chibadura brothers. They are there. You've got
Doing well.
Doing well. And this, whenever he performs, he brings them up. These are my curtain raisers. So I think it's also something that I would urge the established artists to say, look, you know what? You can even advise the promoter, say, hey, you know what? I've got somebody that you could also put on the lineup. But I've not really seen much of that effort. Maybe it's because of a bit of fear or not wanting to accommodate new voices. But once you accommodate new voices, you definitely have young artists that have respect for you, that are supportive of your work.
Absolutely.
And your legacy is unchallenged.
Lil Wayne, I think, birthed Drake and Nicki Minaj.
Yes.
You know, and now they are big artists, but they'll always go and pay
say,
homage to
Lil
Lil Wayne
Wayne
because
did that for us.
You know, he paved the way for them.
True.
I think, like you said, Wopangwe, you know, you feel like, what if this person challenges me? What if this person wakes up bigger than me? But
if they are bigger, and then it means you are much bigger.
it means you created a generation and you are
Exactly.
going on and on. Someone here says, thanks for this discussion, Mr. Presenter. And this is why I always say there are no promoters in this country. We only have some men and women who are in the business of making money through musicians and masquerading as promoters. Atinama promoters, Muno. If you really want to know and understand the definition of a promoter, look at people who took the young and unknown Bundu boys to England in 1986.
That's true.
That's big.
That's big.
You know,
Yeah.
that's big. Someone else says, long live Plot Mhako. We love and appreciate the work you've been doing all along. The Zimbabwean art is failing to grow because we lack support from government. Had we supported Zimdanzo enough, it was going to be the biggest genre. Moving forward, I think we need to take all genres and push them. I saw some of your posts pushing hip hop to the advantage of Zimdanzo. Let's push all genres. Much love, shopmanship. Yeah, your sentiments?
It's quite interesting, I mean, because some assume that I'm not appreciative of Zimdanso. I'm a big fan of Zimdanso. I've been part of a lot of initiatives, including the Zimdanso Awards at inception. First 3 years, I was part of the organizing team. So with Zimdanso, it's a music genre that had so much potential. Same potential that Kwaito had towards the next Gom and now what they call Amapiano.
Yeah.
If you look at that progression transition, right, it was well supported, well structured. And if you look at the artists that were part of the Amapiano, the Kwaito movement and so forth, they created wealth. You know, they created systems and structures.
Yeah.
But right now, if you check, an artist, Zimdanso, who was not doing well, who did well, is possibly struggling. Right.
Yeah.
So there is no money flowing in. It's like numbers, but the numbers are not translating to money. The quality has not really improved. Right. Now, yes, we've got the Natty O's that have managed to stand the test of time. Winky D, Freeman, Killer T, Enzo Asha, and so forth. Right. But the bulk of the young crop of artists that had all that potential have come to nothing simply because they did not realize that there is business beyond big up and wakapenga chingoma chakanyanya. So when I look at Amapiano right now, it's coming from the ghetto, Ekas, youngsters, in Soweto, Deep Kloof and so forth. Young people that are just hungry, but every artist who makes it from there realize that they need a management, professional management,
exactly,
to improve their work. So Zim Danso is still around, but the few that are making it right now, they're the ones that are only eating. The majority are struggling to actually make ends meet.
I love how you put it. It's the structure behind your team. And if you look at those artists that you mentioned who have made it, your Kilatis, your Wingiti, your Freemans, it's because of a certain structure that they then brought with them, and it changed how they're doing things. I was watching an interview by Lebo M yesterday, and he was talking about how important it is to make sure that you've got management, you've got lawyers even, that will translate into your value as well. I love that. As we wrap it up, Plot, let's talk about the Amplify Festival. It's coming 3 September. What do we have planned for that one?
Well, it's going to be massive. People are going to witness a big shift in terms of new artists, being birthed, new artists being propelled and amplified to stardom. We have an amazing lineup. At least 36 artists that are coming on board. Some that we even found on TikTok.
Wow.
Yes, we have got Alvin, the new guy, that we discovered with TikTok, and now he's on the lineup. And artists that are bringing something refreshing, but not only just urban sound. We've got Chipo Mchegwa, who's doing Mbira music, and somebody who's living with disability. So this is how inclusive the festival is.
Yeah.
And
Solution Jesus as well.
Exactly. And it's a very safe environment because families, young people have been looking for a space where they could be, where they could get entertainment and feel safe. And this is what we're trying to create for them.
Lovely stuff. Plot,
Thank you.
I'd like to take this time to thank you for coming through. I think this is how we redefine, Zimbabwean music, Zimbabwean arts culture going forward. And my wish is to see more Plot Mhakos out there. People who are behind the culture in their capacity. Problem we want to be the face, we want to be pamberi, but what you've done, you've sat back and said, no, I want to push the culture, and I hope we'll get more people like that. Excited about what you're doing. Thank you so much. Keep paving way and keep opening those doors for our artists.
Thank you so much.
Lovely. 17 minutes before we get to midday, I was in conversation with Plot Mhako, who's a promoter, he's an entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, a creative, a journalist, is all in one. And of course, you can check out Earground. It's on Twitter as well, at Earground ZW, on Facebook, on Instagram. It's a wrap on the chat room.